in the year of our Lord 2025. Got a lot of great information for you tonight. Let me jump over here to my Murtech on Rumble page. This is the video that you're watching right now, my episode 1729. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Let me pause. This is the video. Close out the live chat and slide down here and click the show more button to expand the description box out. Okay, we have information from Benny Johnson, Doug in Exile, Dr. Steve Turley, and X22 report. But before we get into that, I do have some shout outs to give for NC Garza 1, just started following my channel. Mudbug52 just started following my channel. 508 Rick I just started following my channel. And Nikki Struck just started following my channel. Okay, so thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. Close the door. Good night. Sorry, my daughter coming up. Tell me good night. All right, we have some comments here. Debbie BS reposted my episode 1727, and Debbie BS also reposted my episode 1724. Debbie BS commented on my episode 1727, and Debbie BS did a lot of comments today. She was on vacation, came back and did some catching up. Okay, episode 1728, Debbie BS also commented on my extra 511A, 511B, 511B-C, and Debbie BS commented on episode 512A, 512B, 512C, and my extra 513A, 513B, and 513C. Woo! Thank you, Debbie BS. So you definitely went overboard on the watching the videos today. So let me give this a thumbs up. Thank you for your comments. I greatly appreciate them. All right. Let's see what Benny Johnson has to say here. Judge sides with Charlie Kirk assassin in new ruling protecting murderer. I wonder what that's all about. Let's take a listen and see what Benny has to say.
I have never lied to you on this channel, and I never will. So let me be perfectly honest in this moment when it comes to Charlie Kirk's murder trial, the live on-air assassination that we all witnessed, and how much it affected me as his friend of 10 years, somebody who built a great deal with Charlie and knew him personally. I don't know the answers. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. I'm not going to engage in wild theories because I don't know those either, actually. And so I'm going to stick to the facts. And the facts are this. I don't know who the hell this is, man. The story doesn't make any sense to me. Like, meaning, what the hell? With the text messages, with the whole setup, none of it really seems to click. And that's what a trial's for, I guess. Tyler Robinson, his actions that day, his actions preceding that day, his life, his lifestyle, all of the furry stuff, all the, I've hidden a note. Remember, I was engraving the bullets. What the hell is that? Everybody's asking questions. That's what a trial's for. I believe in the American people. I believe in critical thinking. I believe in the capacity for people to absorb the evidence that is given to them, as long as it's being honest, and to accept these explanations as long as they're given the evidence. I know as a matter of fact. I've been a part of trials before. I know as a matter of legal fact that all available evidence can't get just vomited out, leaf blowered out into the public. That some evidence is to be presented at trial and has to be presented in a courtroom in a controlled environment. Otherwise, you can do everything from strike jurors to disbar lawyers. I mean, this has happened before. Go check on the O.J. Simpson trial, that murder trial. Is that the most prominent murder trial In American history, this side of Charlie Kirk's? Yeah, actually, probably. And so I'm not going to pretend to tell you that I know what's going on here, because I don't. Nor am I going to lie to you and say it all makes sense, because it doesn't make sense to me. And it never will. I watched my friend die on a live stream, and there's just no Hallmark card for that. And all I've been trying to do is to defend my friend. And that's all I want to do. I want the truth to be out there. And I'm never going to lie to you. None of it makes sense to me. On a human level, on a spiritual level, God is the author of life and death. And so to fight this, or to be forever bitter about it, would be to fight God. Because God writes all of our stories. And this is not out of his control. And so whether you're looking at Butler, or whether you're looking at September 10th, don't fight God on these things. He creates life, and then he takes people home. And so it's left to us to dictate justice on this mortal plane. God will take care of the spiritual plane. And so here's what's happening in the justice with Charlie Kirk's trial. And I hated to see a headline like this, but here we go. Charlie Kirk's shooting suspect, Tyler Robinson, wins big legal victory. Ah, man, what's going to go on here now? What fresh hell is this? As he's allowed to avoid showing his face in hearings. Not good. Not good. Let's go. Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, would be allowed to dress in civilian clothing for his trial, judge has ruled. The 22-year-old accused of fatally shooting conservative activist in Utah Valley September 10th was granted a massive legal victory. He did not appear on camera when asked by District Court Judge Tony F. Grant Jr. if he could hear. Robinson said, "Yes, I can." Robinson was also allowed to not show his face in the Provo courthouse as a planned in-person hearing on Thursday, but the hearing has since been canceled. District Judge Tony F. Grant Jr., this is going to be a big problem here, this district judge has allowed Robinson to wear civilian attire because the presumption of innocence remains. Although he will be allowed to avoid jail clothing, Robinson will have to wear handcuffs and shackles in the courtroom. The court recognizes that Mr. Robinson has no criminal history and no record of misconduct while in custody. However, the charges he faces are extraordinary, serious, carrying potential penalties for imprisonment and or death. They still have the firing squad in Utah, as we have said. Cameras have also been banned from showing him entering, exiting, or standing in the courthouse. His restraints are not allowed to be photographed or recorded. Oh. So they are right now just lavishing Tyler Robinson with every conceivable victory from a legal perspective in the court of public opinion. These decisions follow a suit with the two of the most recent prolific murder trials involving murderer Brian Kohlberg and Luigi Mangione. The defenses argue that the jury could be swayed by the sight of Robinson in jail clothes and shackles. To make the case, as noted, a highly publicized death case in Ohio. During his court proceedings, he's allowed to wear a suit and appear without his handcuffs in pretrial hearings. Meanwhile, Mangione is accused of shooting United States United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, granted the chance to wear civilian clothes depending on what courthouse he's in. Okay, so they're saying these two, you obviously, I think, are aware of who these two individuals are. So they're saying that it mirrors that. It is somewhat similar to that. Given the pervasive media coverage in the case, is repeated a ubiquitous display of Mr. Robinson in jail garb, shackles, and suicide vest will undoubtedly be viewed by the prospective jurors, inevitably lead to prospective jurors' perception that he's guilty and deserving of death. Well, okay, that's why he's on trial. Okay, he's also in a courtroom being tried for murder. So how are you going to get around that? Robinson's lawyers claim that the client's behavior has been polite, deferential to jail staff, and without any disciplinary issue. The 22-year-old has been placed on suicide watch in jail. Movements are monitored at all times. I've seen this one before. Oh. We'll be surprised if he makes it to trial, I'll be honest with you. He's not allowed to wear regular prison garb. Instead, he must wear a special anti-suicide smock at all times. These are made of especially thick and quilted material that cannot tear or use to hang or suffocate themselves.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this here, but I think you get the point of the story here. Now, Benny seems to be pretty upset about this. Now, I'm a Charlie Kirk fan, all right? And in fact, I share Charlie Kirk's videos. They're still making videos on Charlie Kirk's channel on Rumble, and I still share those on Murtech.com. Now, I don't see an issue with this. The person being on trial wearing a suit rather than prison garb. Something, I'll just let you in on my line of thinking here. Something that's always bothered me, I mean, I've been on juries before, and I've seen trials on TV. I'm not talking about from Hollywood. But I've seen situations where a murder, for example, okay, they're saying this person here murdered this person here. And during the trial, the prosecution will show pictures of the murdered victim, whether they were shot in the head or strangled or whatever. Really horrific pictures of the person that was murdered. And I've always found that to be unacceptable and couldn't understand why the defense didn't jump up and object to those pictures being shown. The bottom line is, this person's on trial for killing this person. This person over here is dead. It doesn't matter how horrific this person died. The bottom line is, this person's dead. Now, if this person over here is found guilty of killing this person here, I don't have any problem at all showing those pictures to determine sentencing of this person. But while that person is on trial, and you've got 12 people there sitting in the jury area looking at these pictures of this person that's, been horrifically murdered, and looking over here at this person, I mean, it's human nature to want to try to do something to rectify what happened to this person. That should not be at the time of trial to determine a person's innocence or guilty. Now, if this person was all slashed up and the prosecution says this is the knife that was used, his fingerprints were on all over it, the blood of the person that was killed was found on the accused, that's fine. But to show pictures of how this person was hacked up, or the end result of how it was hacked up, I think has no business during a trial to determine whether this person is guilty or innocent. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what you think in the chat. That's just how I feel about it. And again, Charlie Kirk, I was a fan of his, but I think the person on trial does have the option to wear a suit and tie if he wants to. The way he's dressed has nothing to do with the end result of Charlie Kirk's death. Okay? So to sit there with shackles on and prison orange might sway a juror. Just saying. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Benny Johnson. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and see what Doug in Exile has to say regarding Hakeem Jeffries just betrayed his own words by agreeing with Trump about elections. Huh. Amazing. Let's see what that's all about. All right, let me pause this and make sure I get the screen up for you. Here we go.
How do you justify using that now? Doesn't that
Let me back it up to the beginning for you. There we go.
Hakeem Jeffries gets a tough question from CBS about election rigging, and Trump calls out Gavin Newsom for the fake California vote. This is going to be about tactics, about the future of the Democrat Party and Trump's future if Democrats do well this November and in 2026. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the Happy Patriots are. Shout out to the Quad Club, my people that watch all 3 videos, which used to be 4 videos, which is why we call it the Quad Club. Come in, let me give you some news, just the big stuff, just the big stuff. So we're going to start here. This is a Democrat. Kayvan Schroff says, scary. After Barry Weiss's takeover of CBS, Margaret Brennan sounds like a Newsmax host in this interview with Hakeem Jeffries. He's claiming this Democrat, Brennan, is actually being fair against Hakeem Jeffries. Let's watch.
I want to ask you about something you said. You said Democrats, there are no election deniers on our side of the aisle. You said that back in January. But recently, you've been using the term rigged elections in reference to the upcoming midterms. Democrats were appalled when President Trump used language like that.
Not just were Democrats appalled. By the way, this is a great, tough question. Hats off to this is a new form of news, thanks to Barry Weiss taking over their newsroom. So this is a little bit to the right, asking him a tough question. But remember, those of us who said, when Trump said elections were rigged, when I have said elections were rigged, it was enough to destroy people's entire channel and their entire career on this platform. And now Hakeem Jeffries says elections are rigged. They're going to rig the elections, is what they're calling the gerrymandering. They get a pass. They're allowed to use any vocabulary they want. If the right uses it, we're somehow totalitarians, anti-democracy. Democracy's on the ballot.
How do you justify using that now? Doesn't that undermine faith for voters? You need to show up.
No, I've been using that term in the context of Donald Trump's unprecedented effort to gerrymander congressional maps in a partisan fashion all across the country in order to rig the midterm elections.
Yeah, it's different when we do it. We get a pass. The Democrats, there's only one kind of rigged election, and that's by the Republicans. And then when the Republicans say, you rig an election, they're like, foul, you're anti-American, you're this entire democracy.
And deny the ability of the American people to actually decide who should be in the majority as it relates to the House of Representatives.
You know, Democrats are also going through gerrymandering and redistricting.
No. Well, Democrats are going to push back aggressively to make sure that we have fair maps across the country, not partisan gerrymandering, which Republicans have initiated in state after state after state.
That is a lie. The Democrats started gerrymandering, and Republicans are a response to it. But the bottom line is, can we just do away with the names? You know, just say gerrymandering is okay and election rigging is fine. Don't just call it out on the other side. Just call it what it, so that whole thing is a giant lie. But here's Tim Pool with a little bit of clarity on this too. It's very rare that I show Tim Pool on this show, but I like this one that he said.
Donald Trump will be deploying election monitors into blue jurisdictions, and the response from Democrats is that he is rigging the elections. I love the argument. The DOJ is going to send people to monitor. They can't do anything else, and that's rigging an election. Let me just stress this one more time for you guys.
We're just going to monitor elections. This is Trump fighting back. He's fighting back in a very effective way, and I approve of this, just to look at elections, and they're calling it rigging. All we want to do is look. Democrats do not want you to see what they're doing. We'll get back to more of that California election and more on the scandal of that Arctic frost stuff. Here's a new document posted by Svetlana Lakova. Grand conspiracy against President Trump is being launched. A grand jury has been ordered by a federal judge to be impaneled in Fort Pierce, Florida. That means we have some good guys over there on January 12th of 2026. So that's this coming January. We could get the grand conspiracy against Trump charges, which will be the Biden DOJ. This will be Merrick Garland, is who I want. This order followed a motion by Jason A. Redding Quinones, the recently confirmed U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida. According to Mike Davis, who recently met with Jason Redding Quinones, the grand jury is expected to investigate conspiracies against President Trump by former federal officials such as Joe Biden's FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation and the Mar-a-Lago raid of President Trump's home to seize and hide the evidence of their Crossfire Hurricane crimes. Guilty. So we'll be covering that on January 12th, 2026. We hope that they come out with the right decision. Make sure you subscribe to not miss out on any of that news. But wait, there's more. Here's a new Trump tweet. After winning 3 elections by a lot, all caps, I am now getting the best polling numbers that I've ever received. People see how strong the economy is. Now, he's already digging at the Democrats by saying he won 3 elections. The trillions of dollars of investment pouring into our country, the record-setting strong border after years of millions of criminals pouring through it, totally unvetted and unchecked, ending 8 wars in 8 months, no men playing in women's sports, no transgender for everyone, rapidly falling energy prices, and much more. Despite all of this, the radical left losers are taking fake ads, not showing real polls, but rather saying that I'm polling at low levels, which we have documented Democrats saying that, though it's false. These are the people that I've been beating for years, and I'm continuing to do so, but by even larger margins. These ads should not be allowed to run because they're a fake lie. We're going to get to more on the election, but first, a word from our sponsor, Chapter. Medicare annual enrollment is now through December 7th. This is the time where all
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get past this commercial.
And even he's coming around to MAGA's side when Obama CIA director John Brennan screams he's being prosecuted out of revenge. Remember this column by Byron York, and I quote Byron York a lot. I really trust him as a journalist. It's hard to conclude Brennan did not lie to Congress about the Steele dossier. There's revenge, and then there's the truth. Sometimes they're the same. Now, I'm only calling this out because Ari Fleischer is a total rhino, total Bush rhino. And when he comes out and says, this is not politicization, Brennan, you lied to Congress. Here's Byron York's take on how John Brennan actually lied to Congress. The Justice Department is evaluating criminal referral, accusing former CIA director John Brennan of lying to Congress. In the referral, Republican members of the House allege that Brennan lied to investigators trying to figure out what the nation's intelligence agencies did in their pursuit of President Trump. Going back to that grand conspiracy is coming up with the grand jury coming up this January 26th. I'm going to keep reminding you of that. Over the Russia collusion matter, the case is a strong one, says Byron York. And Byron York is also not a big MAGA guy. He's semi-rhino. He says it started back in 2017 with the Steele dossier. That, of course, did not stop the FBI from embracing it. And here's the things that add up for Hill investigators, given that the FBI was doing. One might have expected that the CIA would have played some role in the whole dossier saga. So this is Brennan knew. It was his job to know. And my prediction is he's going down. Now, here's a great one. This one is on Ruben Gallego. Watch this. Exchange. We're going to prove him totally wrong after this. Ruben Gallego out of Arizona.
If Republicans shut down the government next time Democrats are in charge to extract whatever it is that they happen to want, are you saying that's okay? Are you saying that's okay if they do that?
I mean, the Republicans have done this quite a while, yes. Yeah, Republicans have done this a lot.
What did you say about it when they did it?
I don't know, and I don't care.
Okay. I don't know, and I don't care. Last time when the Republicans shut down the government. That's what Ruben Gallego says. I don't know and I don't care. What a nice guy. What a jerk. Kerry Lake, come on. I went back and looked up. Look, here's a reminder. In 2013, he said of Republicans, you can't shut down the government and still claim to be a patriot. In 2019, when we shut it down, he said putting the country in danger. In 2023, he said putting the country, they should put the country before party. So they have no values, nothing. But they're going to do all of this against us. This goes to all the election integrity stuff, whether if we do oversight over the votes, they're going to lie about it when it suits them. It's true for me, but not for thee. That's the Democrat way. Here's Arctic frost probe targeting Trump conservatives born at the highest levels of the Biden White House and the Department of Justice. We're just putting a little more color on this article. Members of the Biden White House and leaders of the Biden-era Justice Department and FBI were all involved in efforts linked to launch of the Arctic frost investigation, which targeted then former President Donald Trump and the MAGA world over the events surrounding January 6, 2021, which was entirely fake. Recently declassified revelations related to the FBI's Arctic frost investigation chronicle the 2022 lawfare assault against then former President Donald Trump and the MAGA world as criminal inquiries, which would soon lead to criminal charges, spun into high gear as Trump leaned toward running for president again. That was what triggered it. That's what I mean by they took this fake news thing that there was an insurrection on January 6th in 2021 is their claim. Now, there was trespassing. I don't condone trespassing. I'm against even going over velvet ropes, okay? That doesn't justify the complete weaponization of government against Trump. Impeach him twice, make him into a felon. They tried to imprison him, and they'll do it again. New evidence shows then Attorney General Merrick Garland. That's my number one scalp I want. I want to see him behind bars. I believe he is the highest ranked person, the most guilty of all of them, and the go-between Biden and all of these things with Jack Smith. Then Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco, she's the one that Trump says has blood all over her hands too. And then FBI Director Christopher Wray signed off on the launch of the Arctic frost inquiry into the Trump-related and Capitol riot. Unearthed emails also show that the Biden White House counsel's office coordinated. That's the emails I want to see. That the White House coordinated with, that would be with Nathan Wade, Fani Willis's dumb boyfriend, Fani Willis herself, and Letitia James, who took multiple trips to the White House where it was coordinated. That one dude went and worked, Kory or whatever his name is, worked for Alvin Bragg with an anti-Trump FBI agent. So an anti-Trump FBI agent, they conspired with him to hand over phones which had belonged to Trump and vice president. So they confiscated Trump and Pence's phones and started pulling all this information on it. That has to be illegal. Here's more from Byron York when reading his piece about how John Brennan lied to Congress on the Washington Examiner. Remember that a few years earlier, the CIA under Brennan actually wiretapped the Senate Intelligence Committee, and Brennan lied about that too. That's another charge that we get against Brennan. Now we're going to get to the elections. Here's Fox News on, it says, I feel like we aren't talking enough about the fact that two of our most powerful cities are about to be overrun. Watch the last video if I said, I'm not as worried about Antifa as I am about the Islamic radicals. Here's two of them. Two communists are taking over. Communist Muslims. In Minneapolis, you have Omar Fateh. In New York City, you have Zoran Mamdani. How did we get here?
About that. Free lawyers for illegal immigrants, and there's more where that came from. But he's not the only one. Across the country, there are more. Two more examples. In Minneapolis, Omar Fateh is running. He wants to fund non-police programs, keep homeless encampments, and stabilize rent. You hear that a lot from the socialists, and you can understand why. Rents are high.
They're coming in to pretend like they care about high rents, and really they're going to install an Islamic regime under Sharia law. That's what I believe the big plan is and the big threat. They use our Constitution against us of, make no law against a religion. And they're going to bring in Islam because they hate Christianity, frankly, and Judaism, but primarily Christianity. And they're willing to ally with Islamic radicals if that's what it takes to take them.
Okay. All right. Great information. I'm going to go ahead and move on with that. I'll tell you that, when he was talking about Merrick Garland, yeah, I agree with him. I think that he should be taken down. That's for sure. the things that they did against Donald Trump, it's not retribution. It's holding them accountable for the things that they did. Okay, as you can see, this video does come from Doug in Exile. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. If you want to listen to more of this great video, the link is in the description box. But let's go ahead and get back here and move on with Dr. Steve Turley. A political earthquake rocks Argentina as Japan turns to the right. Okay, well, let's see what Dr. Steve has to say here.
A political earthquake just rocked the nation of Argentina. The party of their own MAGA president, who's busy making Argentina great again, exploded into power over the weekend and has shocked the international left-wing establishment all over the world. And Argentina isn't alone. The nation of Japan doesn't just have their first female prime minister. They now have one of their most right-wing governments ever. We're about to see how the MAGA revolution is sweeping across the globe and how what you did on November the 5th is changing the world like never before. It was a landslide victory for Argentine President Javier Milei and his Liberty Advances party. They didn't just win Argentina's midterm elections, they obliterated their left-wing Peronist coalition that's dominated the country for generations. Milei's brand new party came in first by capturing an astonishing 41% of the vote, crushing the leftist coalition's 31%. His party won 64 seats in the lower house and 6 of the 8 contested Senate seats. Liberty Advances is now the single largest party in Argentina's Senate with 20 seats. But here's the detail that makes this seismic. Milei won in 16 of Argentina's 23 provinces. Even Buenos Aires, the liberal capital that voted against Milei by 14 points a couple of years back, even there, his candidate, the Liberty Advances candidate, actually won in Buenos Aires. That's not a political victory, gang. That's a political realignment. That's a mandate for radical free market transformation. Now, obviously, the political left is utterly shell-shocked over this. They can't believe it, and they weren't expecting it. Just like in 2016, right, with Hillary Clinton, all the polls leading up to the election showed that the left was running away with this. Of course, their media is just as patently pathetic and left-wing as liberal as ours, right? But one outlet reported that not even the most, pessimistic or dire leftists could have imagined that they would have experienced such a political massacre like they did over this weekend. All the former leftist leaders who've been the architects of the leftist coalition that ran against Javier Milei's brand new party, Liberty Advances, they all watched their political machine crumble in real time. But one thing everyone agrees on, the real winner in this election is, of course, none other than Javier Milei himself, who's become the new international standard bearer for small government libertarianism and free market capitalism. Now, while Milei's party didn't win an outright majority in their parliament, they're going to have to form a coalition with another party. There is no question that they are indeed in charge. The political wins are overwhelmingly on their side, which means that Milei and now his government, a government made up of his party, will be able to effectively pursue the massive economic overhaul reforms that were so key to Milei's winning the presidency a couple of years back. Since then, Milei has implemented one of the most radical free market economic transformations in modern Latin American history since taking office back in December of 2023. Argentina's presidency is very powerful. Again, very much like ours. It has tremendous power, and he was able to institute a reform program rooted in Austrian economics and libertarian principles that sought to reverse 8 decades of state interventionism that's left Argentina with chronic hyperinflation, stagnant growth, and crushing debt. So these radical reforms involve dissolving or merging 10 different federal government ministries, reducing them from 18 departments to just 9, and abolishing hundreds of sub-agencies. He's fired tens of thousands of public employees. He's ended subsidies for electricity, gas, transport, and other public utilities. He's slashed welfare spending. He's frozen the money supply to combat the 300% inflation, along with a massive deregulation program to unleash the Argentine economy. It's the boldest political agenda in Latin America next to Nayib Bukele and his radical transformation of El Salvador. Javier Milei wants to radically cut taxes, privatize a number of state-owned enterprises, and boost job creation. Again, there's just simply nothing as bold as these political reforms, anything like this in Latin America. And he's been incredibly successful. Monthly inflation fell from 25% to now just under 3% in a matter of 2 years. They have their first budget surplus in 14 years. Their economy is growing by 5%. Poverty fell from a peak of 55% to now just around 30%. And clearly, voters are positively responding to all of these radical reforms. Argentines love libertarianism. They love Austrian economics, and they love turning to the MAGA-inspired populist right. And as it turns out, they're not alone. Another equally seismic political earthquake just rocked the nation of Japan, and it's changing world politics like never before. Wait until you see this. But first, gang, let me ask you, what do you think you could do if you had the same
Okay, he's going into a commercial here as well, so let me get past that.
seismic shift is happening 11,000 miles away in Tokyo. On October 21st, Japan elected its first female prime minister in history. And unfortunately for the globalist left, she's no liberal feminist. Sanae Takaichi is a 64-year-old nationalist populist who cites Margaret Thatcher as her role model and who also once played drums in a heavy metal band. Obviously, she's a woman after my own heart. I played guitar in a heavy metal band back in the day. She's being called Japan's Iron Lady, an ultra-conservative who's about to push the world's third largest economy dramatically to the right. She is a staunch advocate for the traditional family. She radically opposes LGBT and same-sex marriage. She wants to preserve the male-only imperial succession. And the big one, she is a staunch advocate for stricter immigration policies at precisely the moment globalists insist Japan needs more foreign workers. Now, of course, I'm sure many of you know Japan is facing a very severe demographic crisis. The population has declined for 16 consecutive years. Birth rates are collapsing. The workforce is shrinking. And what's the left solution? Mass immigration, open borders, obviously, right? Takaichi's solution is to preserve Japanese culture and national identity while addressing the crisis through different means. So she's committed to ending illegal migration and visa violations, imposing severe limits on foreign land acquisitions, especially by Chinese nationals, and implementing stricter border regulations. She's appointed another star player on the international stage of the rising right, Kimi Onoda, who's an anti-immigration hardliner. She's been tasked to oversee a new migration system that will focus on border security and only allowing in those who want to support and harmonize with Japanese culture rather than undermine it. But this administration isn't just about controlling immigration. Prime Minister Takaichi was a protege of the late, great Shinzo Abe, who was assassinated in July of 2022. And in continuity with Abe, Takaichi advocates revising Japan's pacifist constitution, strengthening their military, and taking a harder line against Chinese expansion. She regularly visits the controversial Yasukuni Shrine, which honors Japanese war dead, including convicted war criminals, a gesture that it absolutely infuriates China and South Korea, but it energizes Japanese nationalists. Now, what's so key to get here is that from Buenos Aires to Tokyo, voters are choosing national sovereignty over borderless globalism. From Tokyo to Rome, we're seeing that they're choosing conservative women to lead that charge. And it's all part of a worldwide movement that scholars call civilizational populism. Civilizational populism is, in effect, a mass backlash against globalist policies and elites, where more and more populations around the world are reasserting their fundamental right to exist as distinct peoples with distinct cultures, customs, and traditions, and the growing recognition that globalist elites want to erase those distinctions forever. So that's where the populism comes in, right? Populism is basically an inversion of the traditional political divide, which is generally horizontal. It's left versus right, conservative versus liberal. In our case, it's Democrat versus Republican. Populists invert that divide. Populism shifts that horizontal divide to a vertical divide. It's now the people versus the political class, the everyday man versus the establishment elite, the ordinary citizen versus the oligarch, right? The ruled versus the rulers. But populism itself, being more structural, doesn't tell us very much about the beliefs of the movement, other than that they don't care for their political class, their ruling elites. And so that's where civilizationalism comes in. Civilizationalism fills in the structure by providing the rationale for why you have this new vertical political divide. And it becomes widely apparent that our worldwide permanent political class is undermining our border security and our national sovereignty, our economic security, our cultural security, all for their own gain, all for their own power and affluence. And so it's incumbent upon the people to rise up and defend their unique cultures, customs, and traditions, their national sovereignty, their border security, their economic security, their cultural identity against globalist elite. They're doing everything they can to undermine those securities and identities for their own political and economic gain. That's, in a nutshell, that's civilizational populism. And it's spreading like wildfire all over the world, from the MAGA movement here in the States to the rise of Hindu nationalism in India, from the return of Ottoman ideals in Turkey to the rise of the new right in Europe, from the booming libertarianism in Buenos Aires to the surging nationalism in Tokyo. Everywhere we look, civilizational populism is thriving. The globalist left knows it. They know their days are numbered. But after what just happened in Argentina and Japan, whatever time they thought they still had left just got markedly shorter.
All right, there you have it, folks. I like to hear good information like that. Let me click over here and show you that this video does come from Dr. Steve Turley. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and see what X22 report has to say on his episode 3761A. Fed is now trapped. Lower the rates, more jobs. Trump signaled Powell on his way out. Okay, well, let's see what that's all about there.
On his way out. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the privatized central bank, the World Economic Forum. You can see that Trump now is bringing the entire economic system out of this deep recession that Biden/Obama put the economy in. And who helped put the economy in that position? Of course, it was the Fed. And you can see that now what we're experiencing is what they have done over the last 4 years. And Trump, as he builds the parallel economic system, he is actually bringing us out of the recession that they caused. And I do believe they're going to go back in time and they're going to tell you exactly where the recession actually started. Actually, if you go back to 2008, 2009, when the market came down in 2008, they went backwards in time and said, hey, by the way, everybody, the recession actually started in 2007, even though the Federal Reserve was out there telling everyone that they didn't predict any type of recession in 2008 when they were saying this in January. So once again, I do believe we're going to be going back in time, and everything that they have done up to when Trump came into office, they've brought the economy into this recession, and they were hoping they were going to be able to crash the economic system. Now, remember, the central bank, the deep state players, their agenda was to crash the economic system. No matter if Trump was there, not there, didn't make a difference. That was their agenda. They never expected Trump to build this parallel economic system to compete with their central bank system. And this is the major problem that they're having right now. And it's actually countering their entire agenda. And it's getting worse and worse for them because Trump is continually trapping the Fed. And the Fed is having a difficult time right now trying to push their agenda and crashing the economic system. And every time the Fed lowers the rates, which we do believe they're going to be lowering the rate by another quarter point, but you have to remember they're going to stop the tightening. And I do believe this is going to be their pivot into a different strategy. But every time they lower the rate, they're going to be creating more jobs. And actually, they're going to make people feel a lot more comfortable. And the interest rate on credit cards is going to come down a little bit. Actually, it's going to give the people the ability to purchase a home and purchase an automobile. It's going to spur economic activity. And this is something they don't actually want. And you can see that at this point in time, Trump pretty much has them where he wants them. And Trump is sending out the message that, yeah, Powell's going to be gone pretty darn soon, because you have to remember, Trump, he now needs to shift everything and prepare for the restructuring of the Federal Reserve. I do believe that the parallel economic system is building and building and building. Soon it will come online. It will be actually bringing in tons and tons of currency into this country, and it will be very, very competitive with the Federal Reserve. And I do believe what he's doing right now is he's preparing and setting up the Federal Reserve to be restructured into the Treasury Department. Now, he needs to get rid of Powell way before this happens, because you need somebody in there preparing for all of this. You just can't send someone in there and say, hey, by tomorrow, we need to have the Federal Reserve restructured and brought into the Treasury. So I do believe that he's preparing to get rid of Powell. He's preparing to bring in the person that he wants. I think there's like 4 or 5 candidates right now. And this person is going to actually prepare the entire Federal Reserve to be restructured into the Treasury. And I do believe he's preparing all this because he's getting ready to pay off the debt. Now, I don't mean this is going to happen tomorrow. We still have many other procedures that need to be followed and certain things that have to be done way before this. But I do believe Trump now is laying the groundwork for all of this. And you can see that the deep state, the central bankers, they're now panicking, because what did they really want? They didn't want a recession. They already got the recession. They really wanted a depression. They wanted to crash the market. They wanted the entire economic system to completely and utterly fall apart. And it didn't. And they're having a very difficult time trying to basically bring down everything. And every step of the way, think about what Trump and the Patriots are doing. They're putting all the pieces together. They're preparing to actually overtake the Federal Reserve and actually control it. And this is the deep state central bankers' worst nightmare. They don't want this to happen. But when you look at the Federal Reserve and you look at their system, remember, this is not the people's system, this is their system. And you look at what they have done here, and I've said this many, many times before, that they use the Federal Reserve, the central banking system, to enslave the people, not just of this country, but the people around the world. And this is exactly what they've done, because they make you work harder and harder and harder, and you have to give a piece of the action to the Federal Reserve in the end. So that is enslavement right there. You don't get to keep your hard-earned money. It's almost like working for a slave master saying, okay, you'll be able to work, but I'm going to take half of what you're making because you owe me, and you never can get out of debt. Actually, if you look at the human traffickers, child traffickers that are bringing all these people in, they have to pay off a debt. Are they slaves? Yeah, they are. Are you paying off a debt? Of course you are. You're paying off the Federal Reserve debt. Every single person has to make that payment. Think about that for a second. But think about this shocking stat. Kobisi Letter put this out and said, the U.S. government now spends approximately 23 cents of every dollar of revenue on interest expense, near the highest level since this century. This comes as interest expenditures exceeded $1.2 trillion over the last 12 months for the first time. Interest costs have doubled over the last 4 years as both rates and federal debt have surged. As a result, interest expense as a percent of tax revenue jumped plus 10 percentage points, or 70% to 23% during the period. For perspective, the government spent approximately 10% of its revenue on interest on average before 2020. Interest will soon be the U.S. government's largest expense. And this is what Trump is getting ready to dismantle. Because, again, with his parallel economic system and going back to sound money, the currency that we bring into this country is not borrowed. If it's not borrowed, we don't owe interest on the currency, which means the people don't have to take our hard-earned money and give it to the government. This is what our founding fathers never wanted to happen. They never wanted us to give away our hard-earned money. They never wanted us to be taxed on our property. They wanted you to own your property. Remember, they fought a revolution. They knew what it was like because they had a king. And what did the king do? You had to pay taxes on your property or you lost your land. Basically, the Federal Reserve sets up the same exact system. And this is what we've been doing for a very long time. And Trump and the Patriots, they're prepared to end all of this. And you can see that Trump, he is now building many parts of the new economic system. And one of those parts is AI. And I do believe his parallel economic system. You know what's interesting? Headlines everywhere talk about Ozempic and cat helps hunger hormone, enhancing real regions. Once again, the gold card and AI technology. The Gobisi letter on X put this out and said the U.S. Department of Energy forms a $1 billion partnership with AMD to build 2 supercomputers. The U.S. government knows they must join the AI arms race, and they must. And again, are we going to need energy for this? Are we going to need electricity for this? Of course we are. The cheaper the energy, the more AI processing. The cheaper the energy, more manufacturing. This is what Trump and the Patriots are building right now. And you can see that every step of the way, what has Trump done? He has basically stopped the inflation from going up. Now, you have to remember, inflation is cumulative. If you go back to 1971, since that period of time when we came off the gold standard, inflation is cumulative from that point on, which means every time we add 2%, 3%, 4%, it never goes away. Can we make it so we don't have additional inflation? Yes, we can. And I use the example of someone who gains weight. If you're 200 pounds and you gain 100 pounds in the first year, and then you gain 10 pounds after that, the 100 pounds never goes away. It stays with you, and you're just adding 10 pounds each year. Even if you lower it to 5 pounds, the 100 pounds doesn't go away. The 10 pounds for each year doesn't go away, but now you're only putting on 5 pounds. It's the same thing with inflation. All that inflation stays with us. Trump now can make sure that inflation doesn't increase from this point on. And this is what he's doing. This is why he's lowered the inflation rate to 2% or so, around that area. Now, once again, does that help us get rid of all the other inflation? No, it doesn't. But it does help people get by, especially when you start to lower the energy costs, especially when you start to lower the interest rates. And every time the Fed cuts rates, it helps the economic system, of course, because once again, you lower the rates, what happens? Your credit card bills are a little bit lower. You lower the rates, what happens? Oh, wait a minute. Now I can purchase an automobile. You lower rates, what happens? Oh, now I can purchase the house that I really wanted. Businesses, when the rates are lowered, they can actually get a loan at a low rate. They can expand their businesses. And actually, this spurs economic activity because everything is connected. And it creates jobs. Peter Sedong put this out and said, inflation is cooling despite tariffs that were supposed to do the hyperinflation. This greenlights Fed cuts that could deliver millions of jobs in a Trump boom at the risk of inflation that won't come till 2027. Wall Street Maverick responded to this and said, every point of rate cut is a million jobs. Deportations are lowering inflation, with rent crawling at 0.1% and used car prices falling. While tariffs continue doing nothing to prices, even Fed members are admitting it. Trump's lining up an epic jobs boom. Now think about this. As Trump puts everything together, puts all the pieces, builds the foundation, has the parallel economic system running, and is bringing the manufacturers back to this country, and we have this huge amount of investments into this country, lowering the rates at this point in time will do what? It will help the job market. And Trump knows that timing is very, very important, and he's prepared and ready to get rid of Jerome Powell. And he's going to start the process of restructuring the Fed. He needs the new Fed chair to start the process. Now, this doesn't mean he's going to make an announcement saying, okay, this new Fed chair is going in, he's going to restructure, and by the way, everything's going to the Treasury. No, they're going to do it internally. But he needs that person in place, and he needs the Fed prepared for what is coming. And I do believe this is why when he was on Air Force One, when they were asking him questions about the Fed chair, he said that the Fed chair is going to be removed maybe by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Rapper Response 47 put this out and said, POTUS on naming a new Fed chair. By the end of the year, we want to get too late out as soon as possible. We want to be too early. And he's telling everyone he's prepped and prepared for what is coming. And remember, every step of the way, Trump now is reversing everything the deep state players have done to make it difficult for the people, and actually what they have done to actually bring this country into a depression and a crash. And think about it. He's giving the buying power back to the people. Now, can he just shut down the Fed today and say, hey, we don't need the Fed and let's go back to sound money? No, actually, what would happen is the entire economic system would crash.
Yeah.
People would be confused. They would not know what was going on. Why did he do all of this? So every step of the way, he has to do it incremental to make sure that he doesn't destroy the people's wealth. He doesn't destroy the economy. And because in the end, what does he want to do? He wants to pay off the Federal Reserve. He doesn't want to destroy it. He wants to pay it off and say we don't need it anymore.
That would be fantastic. I hope that comes through. I hope that comes to pass. But yes, the Fed is no friend of the American people. I never could understand. I've said this before, but I never could understand. Okay, when prices are starting to go up, when we start to get some inflation, what does the Fed do? Oh, well, we'll just increase interest rates. Yeah, we'll just increase the interest rates, and that'll slow inflation. Are you freaking kidding me? So now the price of the car inflates another $1,000. Well, let's just increase the interest rate so that way when you finance this car, instead of your payment going up, for example, $10 a month, it's going to go up $15 a month because of the extra interest you have to pay. How does that cure inflation by raising the interest rates? I never have been able to figure that out. All right, let me click on the Rumble link here and show you that this video does come
What happens?
from X22 Report. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here, folks. And I've had a lot of good chats this evening. I want to go ahead and copy those in. All right. Yeah, copy all those chats into a comment, because when this live stream ends, those live chats will just kind of go away into hyperspace someplace. And I want to share some information here from the PK Publishing. I thought this was interesting stuff that I wanted to share.
If you're hungry for truth in a world of noise, check out the books coming out of the GK Publishing over at gatekeepersonline.com. This is a bold lineup of authors who refuse to bend the knee to cancel culture or compromise on truth.
We're talking books like Church and State, How the Left Used the Church to Conquer America, featuring Pastor Greg Locke, Denise McAllister, and Dr. Michael Brown. Social Injustice, Exposing the False Gospel of the Social Justice Movement, with contributions from Jeff Dornick, Brannon House, Dr. Andy Woods, and others, and 5 Steps to Kill a Nation by Pastor Sam Jones.
They've even got Dr. Robert Lopez Cancel-Proof Christianity on pre-order right now, as well as Jeff Dornick's upcoming book Following the Leader, which exposes the cult-like loyalty people are placing in political figures.
These are voices you won't hear on mainstream platforms. These books challenge, equip, and inform from a biblical and constitutional foundation.
So head over to gatekeepersonline.com right now and grab one or all of them. Support real publishing and fuel your mind with the truth. Get free shipping when you use code RUMBLE at gatekeepersonline.com.
Okay, there you have it, folks. And let me remind you that these videos that I have here with you from Benny Johnson, Doug in Exile, Dr. Steve Turley, X22 Report, the videos come directly from the producer's channel. I have the links to all the videos that I shared with you and the links to the producer's channels. So these videos that I did share with you are videos that I've posted on Murtech.com. Here's the video from Benny Johnson. Right down here's the video from Doug in Exile, and Dr. Steve Turley. And right down here is the video from X22 report that I shared with you. Now, here at Mertech.com, and the link to Mertech.com is in the description box, I do have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. Now, I don't have time to share all this information with you, and that's why I do have my daily news wrap-up coming up here about 9:30. So go ahead and take a break, grab a cup of coffee, a donut, grab a sandwich and a soft drink, and meet me back here. Give me a chance to update my playlist. Right now I have over 80 videos in my playlist. So let me go ahead and update that with more recent information that's dropped and get my Rumble studio together to get that live stream going. But let's go ahead and jump back here because I want to do a quick refresh on this and pause studio together and close this out again. All right, I've had 127 people watch this already today. I've got 22 people watching right now, and I've got 9 thumbs up. That's great. I appreciate that. But if I could get another 13 of you to slide down here and give me a thumbs up, absolutely fantastic. I would really appreciate that. Okay, so with that being said, I do want to thank you for your time. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.